Good morning. Good morning. Hello. Good morning. Shh. Somebody told me that trick one time. If you just go shh, everyone stops talking. So, not being rude. But welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. First, if everyone will please silence your cell phone. We just want to make sure there are no interruptions. And inevitably, there usually is one or two. Earlier this year, on International Women's Day, we hosted Ibu, along with a panel of artisans from a number of different countries, to share about the importance of protecting craft and tradition. Given the incredible response, we were thrilled to hear that there would be an opportunity for another glimpse into this beautiful and special world directly from those who are at the heart of how generational heritage is continuing to be protected for the future. The word Ibu means a woman of respect. The Ibu Movement, having just celebrated 10 years a couple of weeks ago, partners with women around the world disrupting poverty and fashioning change through the art of what comes from being handmade. Today we are pleased to welcome this talented group of creatives to share stories of finding abundance despite inevitable challenges and the optimism and forward thinking that continues to preserve their traditions, as well as those of us who shop, in furthering innovations to compete within a more mass marketplace. Please join me in thanking them for their time and presence and welcoming the founder of Ibu Movement, Susan Hull-Walker, to host and guide this insightful discussion.
Thank you, Laura, and the Library Society. Such a magnificent place. The energies here are always so exciting. So thank you for being such a great partner. Ibu is right across the street, and we love this kind of coming together. We have so much to cover. I want to just dive right in and tell you that earlier this year, not only did we celebrate 10 years with Ibu, working with now women in about 100 different groups in 50 countries. And we know that you all who have helped support this, what you have told us you really want is to get to know the artisans and to hear from them. And so we are doing this fringe road travel where we take you to meet directly with the artisans. And last April, we went to Colombia. And some people who are here were on that trip. I want to raise your hand, please, because I want, yes. You can, the rest of you can actually test all of this with them because they witnessed it firsthand. And we met, and we already knew many of these collaborators, but to meet even more creatives who in that country, which is experiencing what I would call a cultural renaissance after years of violence, that coming out of that, I see so many designers and artisan leaders, an architect, a chef, all working to really elevate and tell the story of their cultural tradition. And we were so blown away with these people that we met that I thought, well, everyone can't come on a trip, but we can bring them here. And so we have. Thank you for coming to meet them and hear directly from them. I think you're going to love them as much as we did. So to keep this moving, I would like to introduce all of these wonderful people. Beginning with, that was the wrong button. All right. Okay, these were just some images from our trip. Juan Sebastian Rivero, right here to my right, and his husband and business partner, Juan Pablo Gomez. They are bracketing this whole group. They really began a lot of this because years ago, Juan Sebastian came into a talk show I was doing in Florida and looked around, saw what we were doing, and he said, "You have to come to Colombia." And a couple of months later, I was there with him, and what I saw as I met many of the artisan leaders with whom they work was just this abundance of creative talent. So the Wands, as we call them, or Wand Squared, whatever, the Wands have a social enterprise called El Dorado Edit, which they help a lot of the artisans get to market, get to Ibu, and get out to other groups as well, and have introduced us to so many different groups that it's really exciting for us. So this is just an example of their work. They do all kinds of things: home, accessories, clothing. One of the people they introduced us to is Amelicia Santa Cruz Alvarez, who is right over here next to JP. And she spoke to our group when we were there. Coming from the Gunadule community, you will hear more from her about the stories, the magnificence of that tradition, which she is helping to keep alive. She's also worked in politics for most of her life, representing indigenous groups and bringing some of the concerns to the government and being able to make policy that serves those communities. Catalina, Camilo is her husband's name, I just learned. It is not her proper name. Delgado is much better. She will tell you the story of how she came to use pre-Columbian gold history and apply it to live florals and natural objet that makes incredible jewelry. Here you see an orchid and how it becomes, some stunning kinds of accessories. Magno Catalino I have known for even longer than all. We worked with him. I met in Santa Fe. He has a nonprofit, Finitur Designs is his work, and this summer married beautiful Sandra Anayo, who, I blew it, didn't I? Anayo. Anyway, who helps him and works with him besides the artisans in the workshops. And these are some of the groups with whom they work. And this is some of what they make. You've seen their work at Ibu for years. Mercedes Salazar is, we're very honored to have here with us a jewelry designer who we visited her atelier in Colombia. You see Casa de Mercedes and our group having just a trip inside the candy store of all of the accessories. Here you remember how exciting that was to make these earrings, which you've seen on our Ibu models, and many more things, home decor, and works with artisans with such a passion and with such soul that it inspires me. Yasmin Sabre. Yasmin came, some of you may remember, she spoke at the opening of the Ibu Foundation and has started Molosasa, which has become quite a fabulous brand, which is working with the Gunadule and the Molas. You'll see more. Here they are doing some of their work. We've seen them in our catalogs. Mariana Velasquez, we were introduced to when she invited us into her home. Mariana has a story to tell, but she is a chef and a food stylist and has written this fabulous book, Colombiana, which was the inspiration for this whole affair. And some lucky ones of you will be having her menu tonight when we gather in different homes. And we're so happy to have you. There's just some of her work there. And recently, the New York Times traced her her day in Brooklyn, where she now lives. Juliana Ramirez is an architect working with indigenous groups using natural materials, who bothers to really know and go and live with a group and learn what their real particular vocabulary is, and then work to create. She worked on our Ibu project, which was building a school and a workspace for the Wayu in a remote northern Colombia. See that little model? It's fantastic. And the leader of that group, Chefa, is also here with us, Josefa Antonio Borjiza Iguana, and she is one of the, she is the community leader working with both in education with the children, 50 children a day. She's 21, but is and still pursuing her own education and overseeing this weaving. She is a great inspiration and talked to us. Her first trip out of her community was to Bogota when she met with us this spring, and now her first trip to the States, out of the country. Welcome. This face decoration she did to poor Betsy, who's here, and is a daily expression, as she told us yesterday. of the internal feeling and well-being of the person putting on her makeup for that day. So, I think we lost, there we go. All right, so let's jump in. You've got the wealth of resources right here. And I want to begin by saying that Colombia is one of the most diverse countries in the world. Geographically, from the Sierra Nevada mountains down to all the waterways, the lakes, the mountains, the regions, and culturally, almost 100 different First Nations, indigenous groups that speak a variety of languages, have their own cultures and traditions. And so one of the things I really want for us to understand is about one of those, what some of those concerns are. However, I think I just got out of order. Sorry, lost a whole page, so I'm going to do this from memory. I actually wanted to start with, sorry about that. I just want to start with this renaissance that is happening and how you all see this going on, particularly let's start with craft. And Sebastian, with you, how you see the craft being expressed, how this sort of rising up that I see proliferating all over. You've introduced us to so many groups. What's going on?
Hi, good morning to everyone, and thank you for being here. We feel blessed and valued. Well, to begin with, yes, Colombia is super diverse, and for us, that we can go out and see what's our message as Colombians. We can say that we have like a little world in our country. So we have like so many different indigenous communities, and also Afro communities, and at the end of the day, it's a mix, and we feel like we see like different cultures, and we respect that. So through craftsmanship, of course, it's an expression, and as Colombians, we cannot hide that we've been living in war since like the beginning of our, like the history of Colombia. But at the same time, we express. So I remember us being in the market, on the market in Colombia, and you saying like, Colombia, it's a country of fibers, and basically the expression is right there. Sometimes us as Colombians, we don't see it because as human beings, we need to see out of our own space, to really see clear. So, and that message is very clear for what's happening in the world right now. Because, the conflict war, and we can talk about like so many important and difficult problems that we all face now, but we as Colombians have faced it like since forever. And it's pretty clear what's coming, which is basically a way of looking to ourselves in the inside, but there's a lot of expression of women that I feel like it's coming up very organically, fluently, and it's the message that not only us as Colombians need as a hope, but also it's like our way of giving to the world what we've been living. And you can see that through colors, you can see that through symbolism. And the reason why we're here is because we don't want to lose that, So every symbol that especially indigenous communities express, we want to know more and go deep. That's basically what's happening.
That's beautiful. So it's the way you talk about that, it's almost as though some of the textures and the symbols are a language, yeah? And Mercedes, can you talk about that? How you see and value those symbols and the artisanal craft that with all of the different artisans you work with?
Yes, for me, thank you very much for being here. I'm honored to be here. Thank you, Susan, for inviting us. And yes, for me, like the symbols that you can see in all the artisanal patterns from all the artisans, not only from Colombia, but from around the world, have like a similar language. And I think that language and that knowledge that is involved in the capacity of the artisans that are ones of the only ones that have like that algorithmic insight in their minds, and through like that capacity they can manifest into symbols that amazing language that surrounds all of us. I think that that's like a super magical and very important thing, because it's through that patterns that you can understand that there's energy surrounding us as human beings, and we all belong to that same system of energy. So I think that artisanal communities are like super important for humanity in these days, to understand that we all come from the same place as human beings, and that we all can access that different patterns and that different pathways full of colors and full of energy and different symbols. Because, for example, if you think in the Eye of God, which is like a very normal pattern that is all around the world, made by the different communities, pues the knowledge that it's behind that simple Eye of God is like a very powerful symbol that impact humanity when we see that pattern, and we can sometimes remember something that is also printed in our souls and in our hearts as human beings. So for me, that the knowledge that is inside of those patterns is now my life, is what I really want to learn from. It's my mission, my path. So I hope.
Beautifully carried on, like a language that we're not letting die, because just as a perfect expression, Shefa, could you stand and show your dress? And Sebastian, will you tell what the symbols are, or allow her to tell and translate?
Sobre el vestido y Today I'm wearing the attire of my family, my ancestors, with their jewelry, more sacred pearls and stones, and older gold that they carry. This is my makeup with the path that I want to have during my life. Oh, so that's the way their family protecting her and to be safe, basically, through their jewelry. This is my first trip out of Guajira and out of Colombia. This is the different families, my community. This is mine. This is my kind of like last name, Ipuana. The sun that enriches the region where she lives, which is Guajira, and our community, like right there, representing all the more important symbols that they have.
Bravo!
To have the names of your entire family and community going with you when you leave the country for the first time, I think what a great thing to have on you. As we talk about these languages, I am very interested to hear, Amalicia, about the language of the Mola, which is from the Gunadula, your community. Can you just tell us about how that is, what that expresses, and what you, tell us a bit about how you did go off to school and returned to learn about this from your community.
Bueno, buenos días para todas y todos. Primero quiero agradecerle a la vida, al tiempo por permitirme ese viaje un poco largo para llegar acá.
So she's saying good morning to everyone and thank you for allowing her to be here and express her history.
La vida se trata de eso y un agradecimiento total a la Fundación Ibu,
She wants to create a foundation because life is all about a circle of being grateful.
y también a el Dorado Edith, unos amigos maravillosos que me he encontrado en Colombia, y de eso se trata. Las energías nos juntamos para mostrar y hacer cosas grandes para la comunidad, por las culturas.
She's saying that it's all about energy and how you come together to change cultures and to change the world.
Bueno, yo pertenezco a la cultura indígena de los Cunas o Gunadule. Estamos en el departamento de Antioquia, en el Golfo de Urabá, un pueblo fronterizo con Panamá.
She is from the Gunadule community, which is a community that borders Colombia and Panama. And she is from Urabá, which is a region in Antioquia in Colombia.
Bueno, entonces ahorita yo pertenezco a la cultura de las molas. Las molas quiere decir blusa, pero todo lo que contiene la mola son tejidos geométricos, pero para nosotros son figuras de protección.
Molas in their native language, it's translate to garments, but for them the garments, the geometrical shapes and symbols represent energy.
Las molas es el símbolo más importante de la mujer y de la cultura gunadule, porque la mola es la escritura. Con la mola la mujer habla todo el proceso de la vida, el proceso político, de la educación propia.
So the molas are very important for women, not only as garments, but it's the way of communicating. So whatever they're wearing, it's either expressing their political opinions or their culture or their ideas.
Entonces, alrededor de la mola está todo el aprendizaje de la vida, acerca de la cultura, de la ley de origen, del derecho mayor, de la transformación, de las interferencias que la cultura ha tenido y el reto que la cultura también se tiene que enfrentar.
So the molas express all the challenges that one might go through life, and it expresses their writings and their way of life, and it expresses their path.
La mola tiene un proceso que la primera mola que debe coser una niña es figura en espiral. Ese es como el juego que tiene la niña y es la conexión que empieza a tener con su pensamiento, con su cosmogonía, y para poder aprender de los mayores y toda la historia de origen.
Molas are thought to children, little girls, and they start doing spirals as their first symbol, just to express their energy and how it goes around. And it's not lineal, but it's in a spiral. And
Bueno, es una historia muy larga porque la mola es la representación también de los procesos de la etapa de la niña cuando nace, crece, preadolescencia, adolescente, la madurez. Entonces las molas se componen de dos capas de tela, que es la mola más sencilla, y esas son las primeras molas que la niña empieza a hacerlo, y luego van 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 capas de tela, que son molas muy complejas, y eso quiere decir que la niña...
So the mola process, while they're girls, it starts as a more basic. It depends on how many layers. It's like writing, so it depends. Like they their learning process start with a 3-layer mola, and then it starts just adding layers, which add colors and adds more stories to what they want to express and tell.
Bueno, para terminar, la mola representan esas capas que tiene la madre tierra, por eso las molas van en capas de tela, como le expliqué ahora, y la mola es la escritura de la mujer. La mola, las mujeres la leen y cuentan su historia, la historia de todo lo que encierra su cosmogonía, y por eso las molas en nuestra cultura no se puede acabar, porque son los libros, ¿cierto?, con la que nosotros recreamos, conversamos y soñamos.
So depending on how many the layers for molas represent also the layers of the earth, like the plant kingdom, the animal kingdom, like different layers, energetic layers for the molas. And it's also the way for women to express. It's almost like they were writing into their clothes, and it's a way of telling their stories. And it's kind of like she says that it's like a book where you write and tell your story as women. It's their way of expressing and writing. It goes through their textiles, through their molas.
I just want to make sure everyone understands that a mola is made by, when they talk about layers of cotton with fabric, literally put on top of each other, and then cut away so you expose the layer underneath. And then hand sewn, she's showing us, hand sewing each of those down. It's what we use for our inspiration for this event. So rather than adding fabric to fabric, it's a cutting away, and through those layers showing all of these, as she's saying, the mineral and animal and other.
It's a reverse applique
Yes,
technique.
reverse applique.
But it's interesting because you were speaking of symbology. Sorry to.
Yes, please jump in.
But they used to paint it on their bodies,
Yes.
and then they learned it from European missionaries. They learned the sewing technique, and then it was translated into textiles.
Isn't that fascinating? So these were once body paint, and almost like tattoos were really their first textile, you know? And so then out of that, they began, through the European contact, to make these into fabrics because the cotton was...
Yeah, and then the women appropriated the technique.
Yes, yes, and Yasmin works with this group also very extensively. And JB, what I think we have to move on, so I just want to go back to that one story that Amalicia told me that her passion had been education, and she left her community to go to school and to college, and I think, didn't she get she got her master's degree, and it was a return to the community when she finally realized she had all of this knowledge. She did not have the knowledge of the grandmothers, the real reason for existence, and she returned to sit at the feet of the grandmothers and learn from her own tradition, and that ended up being the real education. Did I say that correctly?
Yeah, you say that.
That these molas are not just they are not just a language. You once said there were like 1,000 different symbols, different patterns. That Amalicia said, if you were to take away our molas, it would be like burning down our library.
I want to add something about molas and about knowledge. And it's, I'm asking Melissa to stand up because I really want you to see the pattern. So if you just get like to see just the pattern, you will start seeing like how they move actually. So little girls would learn. It would be like a kid's book, right? Like a little one's book. They will make it. Like they will do it for themselves. But also they will do it. They will learn like in so many different dimensions. So one of like that one dimension would be like just like the shape, right? But the colors are very important for them. And let's talk about, for example, the principal color for the Gunadule community. It's black. Actually, there's a reason why I'm wearing black today, because for them, black means silence and just to hear. That's the beginning. And it's not only those two words, but also for them, the black, it's happiness. Very different for what is for us, right? For us, it's kind of like sad, and anyway. For them, it's the beginning, because you start, when you hear and listen, you will digest what's really the information, and it will give you basically the base of what's to come. you know? And this is just one color that we're talking, right? So it's it's like in another, like so many different dimensions that they learn and that we need to learn from them. Amelicia's husband is a linguist. And the reason why he studied that is because the language in the Gunadule community is very sweet and lovely and like in a very approachable way. But yeah, so in Colombia we have many, many different indigenous communities, but the Gunadule, for me, it's just like my opinion, is one of the sweetest ones and the ones that can approach to you in a very soft way. And I think that we all need that in this moment of life.
So true. I want to switch completely and talk about another way that tradition is getting carried on. We have more representative, and that includes architecture. So Juliana is an architect, as I mentioned, who agreed to take on an Ibu project to build a workspace for a group, the Wayu group. Women were walking 2 hours to take their children to school because they were coming from many areas remotely to this one school, and then waiting for the children to be out of school to take them back. And when the wands went up there to find out what they really needed and listened, that you're wearing black for a reason, Sebastian, because you listen, so you both listen so well. So they sat down with the women and talked to them until they realized that what they really needed, and the women were able to say, if we could work while our children are in school together, that would be a really good use of our time. So we went to Juliana and the ones helped throughout this process to really, and she went to stay with them and figure out what are the materials they use, what is their traditional structure, and to design not only a workspace for the women, but a new school for the children, the whole compound. So this is also a form of, maybe not Renaissance, but it's keeping alive an architectural language. And I wonder if you could tell us more about that and what else you're working on now.
Thank you very much, Susan. Hello, everyone. I'm so honored to be here and so grateful. Well, this process started by reaching out to Chefa's community. It's called Arema. It's in the northern part of Colombia, and it's the desert, the most desertic part of Colombia. It's in the north, and it's called La Guajira, and they are the ones that have developed the ability of understanding and living in the desert. And for some reason, lately, they have abandoned at some point their traditional architectures that come from understanding from very long processes of understanding how to build with their own techniques. They build with the center of the cactus, and they use this as like strips of wood coming out of the cactus, and they started to build with cement and with tins, with zinc rooftops. And as we started to understand that we wanted to build a space for cultural practices, for women and children to gather around weaving, we also wanted to start and support and revalue the traditional techniques of building. And it was very important because they don't value as much as we do the intelligence of the materials, the intelligence of bringing shadow and to be really fresh and wind materials that allow like wind to go through and not to be able to bring materials from very far away and industrialized and from extractivist processes. So we started to build together and to work with the people of the community and to reshape some of the ways of building, and that's what we practiced, and we worked with people to move with architecture different dynamics. It's not just building spaces, and it's not a practice of like materialize structure, but to materialize the people's feelings and to move the community towards new beginnings. So that's why we started to build with Chefa's family to understand the surroundings and the possibility of having gathering spaces.
And they got so excited that they volunteered to do the labor, yeah?
Exactly.
Did they help in the actual building of it?
Exactly. Like we had these agreements that we can build a bigger project that not only one cultural space, but we can build, for example, other classrooms for the kids if they would bring some materials and have their labor also offered to the project. So what started with only one space, one cultural space, gathering space for the women, it turned into a place with a communitary kitchen with 3 classrooms and all the closing and patio, as they call it, to be like this new school, a new compound for education and weaving techniques.
It's beautiful. And while you're talking, let's just hear a little bit about this university that you're working on now.
Yes, well, I'm working right now with the Inca community in Colombia. That's the descendants from the Inca that came to Colombia from the south. And they started a process like 4 years ago to have a university that was born from their needs to be able to stay in territories, because they have to move from their traditional territories and go to the cities where the big universities are located. And that means that the leaders, with all the difficult issues that they have to be able to go to the cities and pay a rent, a very expensive rent, and what means for people to stay 4 years in the big cities. It's a big loss also for the community to have these leaders like Chefa, for example, to leave the community and probably never come back. So they realized that they had to make a university that meets the needs of them to be able to stay in the most biodiverse parts of the country, so they can be able to keep on protecting these areas. They are the ones that know the selvas, the forests. They are the ones that know the places where water is born in Colombia. So they started this initiative, and we have been working in an intercultural group for 4 years to be able to write their own programs and the educational programs that they need. We're in a long process. We've been working for 4 years, and we're still writing the processes and the educational programs, the pensums and the curriculums for the university. And for example, the government of Colombia, they haven't supported anything at all, but we have some support of the Spencer Foundation, for example. It's a Chicago foundation that supports educational alternative processes, and we have a grant that allows us to work for 2 years consulting with the communities what are the kinds of studies we need. And it's to understand the different paradigms of education, not only Western education, not only like processes that come from outside. It's to understand what is the way of understanding different diverse ways of seeing the world. And
Okay, I have chills. I don't know, I just want to say.
I wanted to add something about Juliana, and I tell her that she is an architect of people, because when she gets in territory, she would know what the Ibus are, especially women. She's very into that. No, but seriously, like she looks for these leaders, and she will know who will match doing what, and she will create like a whole building of people. Like first, like she will analyze, and I think that that is something a really powerful tool that you have. So thank you for that, and for bringing like this entire project wouldn't be done without her knowledge and her way of moving through things, you know. So thank you again, Juliana, for that.
thank you. This is a model of what we built. This is the sea.
This is the Ibu project.
The Ibu project,
See how
exactly.
close it is to the
This
sea.
is Chefa's family house, one of the many houses. They have spread through the desert because it's people that move according to the different conditions that they have to get and resources. And when we got there, there was like just this small classroom built with cement blocks and asbestos rooftop. And then we located this project, and it was supposed to be just this principal cultural space. And with all the support and participation of the community, we were able to build all these. The patio, the surrounding, it's very important because there's chivos all the time.
Goats.
All over that eat everything. So the enclosing is really important, and also because of security matters. So we were able to build everything in a collaborative, really important process. Yeah.
It was a beautiful process for us as well to watch it all come, and who facilitated that. We're on Zoom calls with Juliana the whole time, and with the wands creating this. Okay, I want us to switch gears again, and we have not only architecture but food. Food is such an important part of a culture, and Mariana, you have. We had the great fortune of being in your mother's home. Your mother has brought such exquisite European linens and china to retail shops in Colombia. And you grew up with all of that, and yet somehow decided to turn and look at right around you, at the Colombian food and cuisine and culture. Why did you do that?
Susan, the reason why I cook is love. Generosity, amplitude, real food served at the center of the table, and more is more. I think the core and the reason why I'm attracted to food is less so the actual technique of making a souffle, right? It's the power of gathering. And I left Colombia 20 years ago to pursue this dream of becoming a chef. And I didn't look back. I wanted to learn everything about the food from everywhere else. I mean, there were moments I didn't even miss the food from home because I wanted to learn everything. And very quickly I realized that the core for me in food came from the traditions of my family, the traditions of the table, the reason why the ritual matters. And I wrote Colombiana 20 years later because it was a big responsibility to write a cookbook about the food of my country. Who am I to really have that authority? And I sat down and I feel like my grandmothers were there with me. It's very emotional because it's the way we tell the story.
The way you tell the story.
Yeah. And the experience through food really brings us together. So Colombia has that.
That is so beautiful and inspiring. What if we all sat down at the table as a way of telling our story? Preparing. Thank you. Catalina. So one of the wonderful things we have already spoken about is how young designers are really proliferating. There's just an amazement of innovative designs. And one of the most innovative ones that we came across was Catalina's really new way of making jewelry. And I wonder if you would tell us the story of how you came to do that and what you're doing with it now.
Well, hello, and thank you for having me. So everything began with Juan Camilo, my husband, and my partner in Alma. He gave me this flower as a symbol of our goodbye because we went into separate ways. And I received this flower and I let it dry. So in that moment, I was learning about electroforming, that is this special technique. And I start to, I don't to explore this technique in the flower. And the result was this immortalized orchid. And when I have it, I send it to the gold plated, and they broke the flower. So everything starts there because that was the beginning of our journey to learn how to immortalize flowers and how to make it. I don't know how to say it, but how to make beautiful jewelry to give it to you, and that was the beginning of everything. Sorry, I'm very nervous.
No, it's all good. It's a beautiful story, and I love how it continues the story of pre-Columbian gold in Colombia, where we went to the Gold Museum and saw how much that is a part of the culture also.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because and we wanted the flowers shine because the flowers, not of the shine of the gold. That's why we want to use this pre-Columbian color because this color represents the ancestors and the color of the Colombian gold.
Another aspect that you see a lot in jewelry and in many of the products coming out of artisanal craft in Colombia are textures. I said to Sebastian when I first saw a lot of them all in one place, you know, if you go to Mexico, you see color. You go to Colombia, you see texture. And so that's because many of the groups, the communities, have built their product, the things that they make for their daily life out of the plants and fibers right in their region. And there's so many different regions, so each is so different. Now what happens, however, when there is war, and many of those communities were completely displaced by the paramilitary groups and drug wars, etc., many of them moved to Bogota. How do they get the materials that they need to work with, that they have always worked with? So they're not only in the desert of the city, but they're in the desert without their materials. So Magno, I would love for you to, Magno and Sandra deal with groups all over, artisanal groups, and he has been working in particular with some of the refugees in Bogota, and you talked about sort of a chain that you have created to get some of those materials. Can you say a word about it?
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Okay, I'm sorry for my poor English, but I will try to explain a little bit. Okay, we have been artisan all life from young time. And before that designer, I want to say I am a technician. I lost technical logistics problem. This is my specialty in artisan and with the communities we meet a lot of challenges because, for example, people that work try to work in Bogota had shortage of raw materials because one displaced refugee that goes to the jungles in the middle of the Pacific coast, up on the rivers, and got to live in a poor neighborhood like Ciudad Bolivar in Bogota. They don't have opportunity they've been disconnected with the reservation, the community that original they live. So the first challenge is to take back the artisans and the weavers to the work in the city, in the poor neighborhood, was the problem of the raw materials. So we are trying to, we have success now to create a logistic chains to bring raw materials from the jungle to the city and back some new materials from the city to the jungles. Sounds very easy, but it's not because the raw materials first, the fibers that they need in the city, they grow in the jungle. That's not the growth alone. I mean, it's not something that you plant and harvest by yourself. It's a kind of palm tree. For example, in the case of Guangnan folk, community that make amazing basketry and recently accessories. 4-5 years ago, they began to make accessories, jewelry, most in the city, because the accessories is kind of miniature baskets or the same technique applied to very small pieces. So they take the fibers from the jungle. So the men take the fibers from the jungle. From the jungle go to the little village. They make the cleaning of the fiber, sometimes the dyeing of the fibers. They need to go by boat, river down for many hours to the port in the Pacific coast. After that, they need to go by truck from the port to the city, and then to the city to the different houses, family houses in the village. So
it's impressive, Magno, because that's, I mean, the number of stages you have to go to get the fibers. And then to return, they're sending some copper wire. So there's a whole new innovation in jewelry and accessories that he's also working with copper that becomes an innovation for them back in the jungle. And I just want to say, imagine being so attached to your community of fibers and plants that if you were displaced, you would be no longer at home. I mean, it's not something that we really live by much anymore, but many people do, and that's what's so amazing, the sort of geographical and cultural the marriage of these communities. I'm going to keep pushing us forward because I wanted you to be able to ask questions. So I'm going to ask one last one. Yasmin, let's start with you, which is, I just want to think about the future of artisanal craft in Colombia and what some of the challenges are, what some of the possibilities are. You work with the Buradule. My understanding is sometimes you can't even go all the way to the group because of danger. So if you could talk about that and how you get around that, and also what can we see moving forward?
Well, I think there's a lot of challenges. Where to start? There's aesthetic challenges, there's gender challenges, there's logistic challenges. Like Magno was saying, part of what Amelicia's work does with the girls, dyeing crafts. A lot of these crafts are, disappearing because these artisans have no commercial avenues. So I think those are part of the challenges, is, allowing the bearers of these treasures, it's their ancestral crafts, to be able to show them to the world. And, they don't have a lot of opportunities. So I think what you are doing is also incredible because you're bringing to the table these opportunities. Most of them only have one chance in Colombia a year, which is the artisanal fair, which is absolutely stunning and majestic. And, I definitely recommend it because all these communities come, and like Magno was saying, some of them travel for 3 days. But, there's also a certain type of demand. So if you're from the US, from Europe, from outside of Colombia, you look for certain aesthetics. And this is something that is not so well understood inside of Colombia. I think a lot of these crafts are often cheapened in the popular markets and they lose value. So I think it's part of the work that we have to do as a group, how to pursue this aesthetic avenue, I think. And this has to come from outside. And I know that they've been trying to work a lot of this through Artesanías de Colombia. Colombia has a very unique entity that is part of the Ministry of Exterior Relations. Not really sure why, because it's a more cultural thing, but they've done an incredible job mapping out all these crafts from all these communities. As Susan was saying, Colombia is extremely diverse, and I think Colombia also has, it can be like a two-sided view, because in a sense violence has protected a lot of these communities, but it also has generated huge displacement within Colombia. So like one of the problems is that a lot of these, for example, the Embera are a large refugee group in Colombia. They had nowhere to sleep. So, it's like, how do you balance all of this in a country that is so corrupt, that has so many problems? But, it's very important that people like Ibu Foundation and Susan kind of find interest in all of this and are looking inside and, building all this connection. We're all here and all these ideas spur. And I think, that's how you kind of tackle the challenges.
Right here.
Yeah.
Through you
have
people like you. It's not going to be the governments that save us in the end.
Well, unfortunately, in places like Colombia, like Juliana was saying, a lot of these projects are born and they're amazing, and then, they kind of trickle off. So that's a very big challenge. How do you keep that going?
Yeah. That's your job. to keep it going, because you were speaking my language, of course. If I could just underline what you just said, they need markets. They need markets of shopping and bringing your friends to the marketplace, not just at Ibu, but anywhere they're able to offer their goods. It's really important for them to have that outside of their own country. And the second one, to elevate that craft so that it doesn't become just a trinket that you're going to just throw away, but people see the value of it. And it's one of my ongoing challenges to really elevate women's handcraft, which is so exquisite, but often not valued at the same monetary level as, say, men in Europe who are also doing artisanal craft. So to begin to balance those scales is really...
But that's where the intervention is so important.
Yeah.
But I think that another challenge in Colombia is these things are very costly. It's one of the problems I face, particularly when I, order things from different communities, because I started working with the Gunadule, but through the process of working through them, I learned, a series of things that can be applied to different communities. But sometimes the cost is too high. So then how do you sell it? Sometimes people say, oh, this is $600, and they think twice about it, but they don't have. So how do you tell the story? That it traveled by boat, that it got that the fibers were brought to the city because the people are displaced. So I think the storytelling is a huge part of it. Mm-hmm. How do you show it to the world?
That's why we're here today. Mm-hmm. JP, you haven't had a chance to say much. Do you have hope for the future of artisanal craft? And if so, what? Why? What gives you?
Hi everyone. Yes, I believe there's a bright future for artisanal art, especially now that everyone, well, not everyone, but the world has shifted to a place where this type of art is being appreciated, and the story behind the art is also being heard. So we have so many stories to tell of communities that haven't had a chance to be heard. And so even though it's been centuries, not centuries, but hundreds of years, for them to be able to speak and for the world to be able to listen, I feel like this is the moment where we are paying attention, because it's needed. I mean, the world is going to a place where this knowledge and this art is where we need to put our focus on, because there's knowledge that we need to hear, and there's knowledge that we need to apply to our lives as well. And I feel it's the great example is I mean, here, because this is the future of craft. It's a fusion between the ancestral and indigenous communities with a modern world.
You're so right, and one of the things you all do is really working to bring out some of the future, younger generations. So let's end this with Chapa. To just your thoughts about education and the future and how you see this artisanal craft and education moving forward. You are the future.
Desde que inicié mi camino con Ibu y con el Dorado Élite, definitivamente nuestra vida cambió. Gracias a ello tenemos un espacio comunitario.
So since I started working with Ibu Foundation and El Dorado Edit, I started to see like how the impact and the change can be done.
En el cual inicié la oportunidad de poder estudiar. Tengo mi primer tecnólogo el 6 de diciembre, gracias a ustedes.
So thanks to you, I'm going to graduate from
At technology.
exactly at technology school. So thank you guys.
It's like a technical degree.
Technical
Technical
right.
degree.
Y ahí aprendí el amor de saber conocer, saber hacer, saber ser y saber convivir.
Oh, qué bonito.
So that was basically the base for me to understand and to really have knowledge about like what's important, basically, right?
How to be.
How to be.
How to feel and how to
Right.
know.
Right. How to be, how to feel, and how to know.
Plasmando en mi generación una nueva oportunidad de que a través de nuestra cultura podemos demostrar que no solamente la Guajira puede ser conocido por partes negativas, puede ser conocido por desnutrición, por falta de sequía, sino que también a través de lo ancestral, a través de la oralidad y de la gramática, podemos estar aquí sentados como estoy yo con ustedes.
And to tell you that particularly this indigenous community can be known for hunger and for being like in the middle of the desert with no resources. But for her, it's also encouraging about like the value of her community and what they have to offer, basically. So that is the reason why she's here. That is the reason why she's speaking up of her cultural challenges and ancestral
Ancestrality,
orality,
and
yeah, the power of symbolism.
La pedagogía se ha vuelto fundamental en mi vida. Antes yo quería ser trabajadora social o luchar por los derechos de los pueblos indígenas de mi comunidad. Pero de pronto la necesidad de poder estudiar me llevó o me impulsó a la pedagogía, pero nunca pensé que la pedagogía fuera tan fundamental para poder plasmar una enseñanza significativa en los corazones de esos hermanos guayú que piensan que el estudio o a través del estudio nosotros no podemos tener un mejor futuro.
Pedagogy has become her passion, and that's what she has been really realizing.
Sorry. She wanted to be a social entrepreneur, but she didn't know how, basically. She wanted to fight, in a way. But she understood that through education, she can learn, especially being her as a teacher, but learn through that people, all the small kids, about her culture and what's really the part of her culture, basically.
And to inspire other Wayu members of the community. And to inspire other members of the community, other kids of the community.
Nosotras las mujeres somos preparadas para ser mujeres de hogares y nunca de pronto unas mujeres con estudios superiores.
We as Wayu women are educated to be mothers, housewives, not to be educated.
A raíz de eso, mi madre y mi padre nos sacó de la comunidad.
And because of that reason, my father and my mother took us from the community and took us to Uribia, which is the main city close to their community. Los acompaña.
There's a lot of chauvinism in these communities, I think, is what.
So they can go and educate themselves and study, and that's why they are one of the families that went away and went to the urban part of La Guajira, so they can be educated.
Qué hermosa, gracias. Bravo, hermosa, bravo.
Ahora soy la docente de Sancaí. Estoy en representación de mi familia. En un futuro pienso pararme sin de pronto derramar una lágrima. Pienso que mi camino está en la oralidad. Yo perdí mi lengua materna al inicio, pero como dice Amelicia, la necesidad de volver de donde uno nació nos hace estar acá. Hoy ya yo me puedo parar y decir, Jamaya, ya fuere, Tanuria, Josefa, Tigrucuí, Puana, Anaya Watsahiyakana, Antu, Yaya, Ma, Guayacana, Colombia. Gracias a ustedes por venir a escuchar nuestras historias. Juro que estoy delante de personajes que representan a Colombia y soy la menor, soy la bebé de ellos. Y creo que eso es lo que le digo siempre. O sea, para mí siempre va a ser un orgullo estar al lado de grandes personajes que aspiro a tener como ejemplo de vida.
But because of that, she was able to be a teacher and to be like the youngest leader of this batch of people that really want to make a change. And for her, it's just like she's amazed of being here and have the opportunity to really share. She knows, now she knows, she did not know that before, that through orality and to speak up as a woman, as a person of a community, and as someone that knows, this is very important, like the collective power of, so to make a change through education. So for us, Chefa, para nosotros también, it's an honor for you to be in here because new generations, they will call it crystal, right? Like the generation, the crystal generation, because they're they're sensitive, and there is a reason why they're like that. We've been really rough through each other for so many years now, and that feeling that she has, because she's very powerful but very soft at the same time. Mm-hmm. So it's basically our seed of people that might have a brighter future and will bring a brighter future to so many people.
I want to compliment something. That her path is the orality, and at some point, because she left the community, she lost the language. She lost it and she stopped. She couldn't speak the language, and the dialect. Okay. Yes, she left the community and she lost the dialect, and because of the education and her studies, she has been able to recover the language and to be standing here and say to all of us in her dialect what she just told us. Also, this is my opinion, but she is a teacher. She's 22 years old. She's the teacher of 50 kids of different ages, from 5 years old up to 15 years old, and she is the inspiration. Her aunt was the only teacher of the community, just one lady that didn't have kids, so she was able to dedicate her life to teach the kids of the community, and now she is the one that a young one stayed there as very different from the other young people of the communities that want to come out and to be on the cell phones and to be on Wi-Fi all the time. She now stays in a really far place with kids that the only thing that have is to go to the school and be able to learn from Chefa. So she, for example, got an offer to come to Bogota and to study a career, and she said, no, I'm not able to go to Bogota because I have to stay in my community and be able to be responsible for all these kids. So it's an amazing...
But because she told me yesterday that she feels that there's no one that can... I asked her, I said, well, wouldn't that open some doors for you? And she said to me, there's no one that will keep going if I leave. So that's one of the problematics in these communities.
One more thing she said, one day I hope to be able to tell my story without crying.
Thank you for all translating.
Chefa, you are an Ibu, a woman of respect.
Sí, wow.
Yeah. And so we celebrate you and all of you who are on this platform today for the stories that you have brought to us.
I think you have two very important community leaders here, and I think that's something that should be highlighted. The Chefa and Amelicia,
yes.
It is a culture shock. It's hard for them to leave their community, and I think it's incredible to have them here because they're very, 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 I can't tell you how important they are in their communities, and that they really do, especially for girls. Girls have a very difficult time in these very tight-knit, isolated communities. So they are very important leaders.
Amelicia, we're talking about you, and you also, your leadership, your role as a woman of respect in your community as well, and just honoring what both you and Chefa bring to your communities, and how much we owe to you gratitude and our respect. We have just 10 minutes for your questions, and I'm going to try to do this just open it. Do any of you have questions you want to ask of anyone? Yeah, Jackie.
Sounds like Mercedes, I went to your retail shops in Cartagena maybe 10 years ago or so. But I'm curious for you and also for Yasmin, as women entrepreneurs who started a business, it's so hard for American women to start businesses, startups. So I'm wondering, how difficult was that? Did you have to self-fund? Did you have investors? How difficult was it to start and build a business for both of you?
I started the business like more than 20 years ago, and in that time the market wasn't as big as it is today in terms of as many designers that are now working for artisanal communities. So in the beginning I came with like a big collection of different designs, putting like a lot of design into the artisanal techniques, so the company went very well from the beginning. That was like, I was like really lucky in that time to have that support of the also periodistas from all around Colombia, and they really helped me to build the business in that time. A lot of press in that time as well. And from the real beginning, si le traduces, me recontra desconcentro, me ayudas. And then pues, I really put a lot of effort from that time to go to the different communities in Colombia to understand the different capacities that were in the country and to really help those communities also like understanding that there was a compromiso, how do you say compromiso? A commitment to help those communities to maintain their artisanal techniques alive. But yes, it's not easy to be a designer, it's not easy to work with artisanal communities and to keep going through time, because once you begin to work with an artisanal community, the important thing I think you have to have in mind is to keep that work in to the time.
Consistency.
The consistency, because you can't promise a community that you are going to help them if you don't really are in that capacity of help them. And it's not also como que you help them. It's a work
collaborative.
Exactly. It's a work that you do together. And if you see that work in that way, you can manage time. And that's like the compromiso that I have had for many years, the commitment.
No,
yes.
I think Mercedes is a success story, absolutely. And we all should veer to use her mentorship. But no, I mean, it's challenging. You need a lot of resources, a lot of funds, and I don't think that's necessarily available to a lot of companies. Also, you know, if you need funding, well, how do you prove that you can be sustainable financially? So it's not easy, and I think a lot of companies that want to do this kind of work, you know, they're not able to maintain it as a project. So I think there's, you know, there's funds and there's more impact funding now, but it's still complicated to access all of these resources. So, but you know, I think what Mercedes said is very important. You have to have I think what the last thing she said is key, and it has been for me the commitment and being able to maintain the relationship, which is, I work mostly with the Gunadule and with the Cancuamo communities. Those are the ones that I have worked most with. And then I try to do other projects with other communities, and sometimes it's hard to sell the things. And then if you don't sell them, well, then it doesn't go anywhere. But
one of the things that's valuable, for I think both of you do this, which is to take work from one community and combine it with the work of another. So your earrings that I wear all the time.
yes, those combined two communities.
You know, one community has done part of it and another community has done the other, but then you're able to integrate the two and create a product.
I did a project for Holt Renfrew in Canada, which was really interesting because I actually applied the knowledge from one community in the Sierra Nevada called the Cancuamo. They make the mochilas, which they use for their personal belongings, and they dye everything with natural dyes. So they have like tree bark and seeds. It's fascinating. I did a workshop there with them, and I actually asked them to dye some textiles. And so because this project for Holt had to be fully sustainable, so no chemicals. And they did all the dyeing with natural dyes, and then we sent the fabrics to the Gunadule community, which Amelicia is part of, in another part of Colombia, and then they did their textiles, like the one that she's wearing on her shirt. So that was a cross-pollination that was interesting, and I think, you know, more projects like that are important.
Another question.
Yeah. So, I'm coming from a place of love of craft and heritage and art when I ask this question, but I'm curious, has the computer affected your lives at all, either for the creative process or inspiration or anything at all? It's fine if you say no, but
it has.
I'm just curious.
Wondering how the computer has affected this. Does anybody want to address
I use
that?
it all the time.
Yes.
I have an iPad and it's like my favorite tool in the world to design.
To design?
Yeah.
Yes, to design, and then yes, like como que all this technology also helps the business a lot, como to improve timing. But when you go to the communities, you still use like a lot of paper and colors, and it's much easier for them to understand in real designs what you really want to develop with them.
Can I add something? Not only computers, but technology, like in the whole term as well. Because, for example, for us that work with different artisanal communities, before it was really hard just to get to them, you know, just to communicate. We got a sample after a couple of months, and then we had to ship it back, and then the process was so long. And now just WhatsApp, you know, send us a picture, and we talk constantly. So it allows us and facilitate us communication with communities. Not only computers, but technology as well. So it's been an amazing tool just to be able to communicate on a daily basis with the communities that we work with.
I think that was an Ibu Foundation project, Magno, to provide phones,
Yes.
iPhones to the
Sponsored by
community
Ibu.
because they were so remote and they needed to take pictures and to communicate with Magno in Bogota, and so they have actually used it to communicate their designs. Yeah, not to mention your websites and so on. Okay, yeah, this is it, last, yeah. Yes.
The question I have might be a future problem question, I'm not really sure. But as more and more interest is generated around the world in artisanal crafts and work that you're doing, that then brings more access to these communities that were previously isolated, and it brings in more foreign attention and people and tourists. The tourists are sometimes good. I do some work with some psychedelic communities, and they are inundated with
Which communities?
Psychedelic.
Ah, okay.
they are inundated with tourists, and at the same time they go, they take, but they don't leave. I mean, they physically leave, but they don't leave anything positive behind. So my question is, how do you balance the protection of the community and the protection of the culture with wanting to expand the market?
So, especially indigenous artisanal communities, but especially indigenous communities, they're open now. They're even like getting more open, like with time, to really like show their knowledge. But it's just like when you don't bring home everyone, you know. No, seriously, and for them, like they will have like this. They're very polite, most of them. Like they're very polite, but to really have like a moment, and I would call this a momentum. Well, a momentum would be like having a conversation and just conclude something that you both feel like vibrating in a way. So it's very difficult for foreign people to do that with the communities. They can say whatever they want to say. They can even talk. They can pretend that they're connected. But honestly, like especially indigenous communities, they're very jealous about that moment. You know, to that intimate moment. So when you really get to know them and they get to know you, and to really talk from not compassion but empathy, you know, that is a very strong word in the indigenous communities. So to really have that empathy, you really have to live sort of like some stages or phases with them in a long or short term. It doesn't matter the time, but it has to go deep. So for them, that of course not everyone, but for most of them, it's very important to receive. I mean, what are you coming with? You know, like I'm giving you this, but what am I having like on? You know. So basically, that's knowledge for them, and that's the way they understand the outsiders. You know.
Which is a great way to end, because everything we try to do at Ibu is about reciprocity, and so here is this beautiful opportunity to listen to your voices and your stories, and there are many, many more. So here's what I'm going to invite you to do. All of these folks here are going to get marched out somehow by Lassie, and they're going to be taken across the street to the Ibu showroom, and I encourage you to go and talk to them. And not only that, you will see all of the things that they have made in a beautiful display. There's a gallery there that has been set up with hundreds of their products which they have brought in. Mariana will be there with her cookbooks also for a book signing, if you would like to purchase one of those. And yes, and you have already dipped into it. I think you might need this if you're a cook and you enjoy it. It's beautiful. So thank you, Laura, and the Library, Gabrielle, the Library Society, for hosting us. Thank you for coming. Please don't miss the opportunity to go across the street and. Till they get hungry and go up for lunch. About 1:50. Okay, that's about 1:50. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.